Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the stream. I'm Tom Smith with the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. Pleasure to have you here this evening for our very special release. This is a rather unique release that we have for you tonight, as you could garner probably from the title of this stream rather. It's a cask that has been chosen by American members. So we're really excited to present this for you. I have a good friend and fellow society member waiting in the wings right now. We'll bring him on in a couple minutes. But first, I just want to say hello to some folks in the stream here who have joined. Adam Clary, first out. Hello, everybody. Jesse, Stewart, thanks for coming. Daniel Duggar, and customer, very mysterious. Somewhere in Boston, there is a customer of the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. We have Charlene from KC. How you doing? Stuart, Marvelous Marmalade. Very good. What's everybody drinking? Let us know. Members remember Embers from Adam. That's a fun distillery, number 93, I believe. Shalom from Saratoga Springs, New York. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Shalom and a lot of other fellas up in the Saratoga area through Saratoga Whiskey Club. We'll fill you in much more on that in just a few. We got Dale, we got Tommy Provin. Hello, sir. How are you? And Rob joining us from Massachusetts. So tonight, as I mentioned, pretty special cask, and this particular release is connected to probably the most important aspect, or at least a very vital aspect. Probably the most interesting part of what we offer at the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. And that is essentially as follows. When a member, whether they're a prospective new member or somebody who's pretty well-versed, they're looking through all of these different casks that we have on our site. Sometimes, it's upwards of 40 different casks. That's a lot of juice kind of hanging out there that you have to choose from. And sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. But the confidence that every single member can have is that all of these casks, regardless of age, profile, provenance, have been approved by our tasting panel. The tasting panel is an extremely unique part of the society, and that's very much what we're talking about tonight. So for those of you who may have joined us very recently or need a little refresher, our tasting panel is based in Scotland, in Edinburgh. These tastemakers and industry professionals gather weekly, typically in person. The last several months, it's been on Zoom like everybody else. But these guys gather and have the very envious task of tasting whiskey to ensure that it is ready for the society member. So they have several samples that are tasted. They're tasted neat, and then with the addition of water. And as these tasting panelists are going through this process, they're taking copious notes. So of the group of people who are there, there's typically one person who is the chair. And the chair's responsibility is to sort of lead the tasting and make sure that the panelists are not only talking about kind of top line sort of characteristics, but really digging into it. Like, for instance, is it fruity? That's great, but that's not good enough for the panel. What kind of fruit? Is it dried fruit? Is it baked fruit? Is it fresh? Is it tinned, perhaps? That sort of thing. So they're sort of providing some structure to the experience, but also once all is said and done, they gather these notes from the individual panelists, and it's their task to then create a unique title and a unique tasting note for our casks. Now, our single casks are wildly different from each other, so that title and that tasting note should reflect that. So that's a very, very important aspect of what the tasting panel is bringing to the table. So at the end of the day, the society member looking at the website in whatever country they're located can take a lot of ease in knowing that all of these casks have been vetted by a group of industry professionals who are themselves evaluated on their olfactory performance. So to be in the tasting panel, you need to pass certain tests. And every few years, you do have to be re-examined to make sure everything's in line. And it's a really fun experience. I've been a part of it. I'm sure many of you have been a part of it as well, either in Scotland or in the US. Which brings me to the next part of the uniqueness of this particular release. So with the tasting panel in mind, in 2018, our team dreamed up this notion of bringing that tasting panel experience to the United States. And the panel, to give you a bit of history, started right after the society started in 1983. Really, the origins could be traced back to Pip Hill's kitchen table, where a bunch of folks were just kind of sitting around and tasting and discussing and making these notes. It was more formalized in 1992 when they brought on a chairperson named Charlie McLean. Charlie at the time was a well-known whiskey writer, but over the next several decades, he would be elevated to, Hall of Famer status. So Charlie was the head chair for the Society's tasting panel for many, many years. So we thought, what better person than Charlie McLean himself to come over and lead American members in this tasting panel experience. So in 2019, we launched it in October of that year, and we started in New York City at Astor Center. And one of the participants in this group of 30 people who were part of the tasting panel for this experience is my guest. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on Mr. Charles Grabitzky. Charles, welcome, man.
Thank you, Tom.
How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good.
To dive into this cask.
Yeah, for sure. So Charles and I were in that room with 29 other members and Charlie, and that was the very first tasting we did. Charlie talked for about 3 hours straight. It was supposed to be an hour and a half event, so I was a little nervous about it. But in any case, everybody, I thought, had a great time. And Charles said something to me afterwards that really just kind of hit the nail on the head. He said, after an experience like this, you have a member for life. And that was probably the best compliment anybody on our team could be paid. So I thank you for that. And it's great to have you, man. So we'll talk about this tasting panel experience that you had in 2019. But before we get to that, this is your first time joining us on the stream, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. So welcome again. Charles is a buddy of mine, and we've done some good work together through the Saratoga Whiskey Club. So maybe that's a good place to start, huh? Because you organized this club and have been running it for how many years?
Yeah. So back in 2015. I started, 2014, 2015, I started a travel business called Rascal and Thorn, taking people on whiskey tours to Scotland and Ireland and Japan and Kentucky. And I came back from one of my first trips to Scotland and realized how much Scotch I had not tasted. And it was a problem. I got the bug. I mean, I had been drinking Scotch a long time, but not until you really dive into Scotland do you realize how much there is to appreciate and to learn about. And so coming back from Scotland in 2015, I decided, okay, I got to find a group of people to go in with me and buy bottles and taste these things, because that's really the only way to do it, unless you're richer than rich. So it grew. We had 20 people to start back in 2015. This is our 6th year as a club. We're up to about 115 members right now, all really big enthusiasts at this point. We do 2 to 3 tastings a month, a lot of Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottlings. We love that. It's really a lot of fun for us. It's still probably the best source for single cask experiences here in the United States. It's just so consistent and so many offerings. It's just been wonderful. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
And I had the pleasure of hosting one in-person tasting
That's
That
right.
was in July of 2019, and then we did some virtual tastings as well.
Yeah, we did an incredible. What was that? Distillery number 20?
Oh yeah, Distillery 27. Like,
yeah, that was
retrospective. That was awesome.
That was quite amazing earlier this year. I mean, Campbelltown's a big favorite of mine to begin with, so
for sure
that was special.
And with Rascal and Thorn, so wow, this sounds like a pretty good way to make a living. You essentially organize and book whiskey tasting tours, not just in Scotland, but Japan, Ireland, elsewhere.
Yeah, we were actually just in Japan last February, right before COVID shut everything down.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did a whiskey and ski trip. It was a combined whiskey and ski trip with the Chichibu Whiskey Festival, all in one. It was something else. But yeah, Scotland, is obviously the place I'd probably go to the most, and Kentucky just being easy to get to. But yeah, I love taking people all over the world and teaching them what I've learned, and I learn from them. And every time I go back, I learn more, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool to be able to kind of enlighten a lot of folks, but also kind of broaden your own experience through those interactions.
That's right.
Yeah, that's really cool, man.
And the club has been wonderful. I mean, we have such great members in the club, and they're, every time we have tastings, it's quick to fill up, and they're all loving it. And it's just been, we've done almost 90 tastings now. That's
impressive.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
That's really cool. Yeah. Well, I look forward to the next one with you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, it's a great bunch of folks you have in Saratoga. So let's turn back to the tasting panel experience in 2019. I know that we tasted through 6 whiskeys, and then we went for drinks afterwards. So I don't know how much you actually remember from the day. We started kind of early at 5 p.m.
Yeah. Well, it was really fun for me because that earlier that year in August, I met Charlie in Scotland at Ardnamurchan. I happened to go there. I knew it had just kind of opened up, and I needed to go check them out. And I had met one of their people in New York City earlier that year. And so I happened to go through, and Charlie was there. His sons were practicing for their transatlantic rowing venture. So I got to meet Charlie and talk to him for a little bit, and then to get to see him in October or November, whenever that was, with the tasting panel. He remembered me from Ardnamurchan, and I mean, it was just great to reconnect. And one of the things that you had mentioned about adding water, one of the things that I learned at that tasting panel with Charlie was how much water he actually puts in his glass when he does his taste. I was shocked. He puts a lot of water in there. I usually am just this little dropper and adding 1 or 2 drops.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So you learn from each of these experiences.
He teaches us to to add enough water, just enough water to alleviate that prickle.
Yeah.
On the nose. So when you're nosing neat, you get that bit of heat, that bit of tingle. So he's told me on more than one occasion, dilute, just enough to get rid of that, and that's diluting appropriately to your palate. But then he goes and like dumps it in like a blender, right? I mean, he's diluting it down to like 20%. So he's a mysterious man.
I think he said that he was trying to get it closer to 40. I mean, because all of these are 55 plus whatever, and but it seemed like he was getting closer to 20.
It's a little heavy-handed, but that's okay. He can do whatever the hell he wants. So at that experience, we had 6 samples in front of the members, and there was no cheese spreads, no olives. I mean, this was a professional tasting. So I think you had just some plain water crackers to cleanse the palate and water, and that's it. And everyone was tasked with taking notes of, as we mentioned before, full at cask strength and then reduced strength, nosing and tasting and creating their notes. So we did that in New York. We did it then in DC, in Chicago, Seattle, and Los Angeles. And at the end of it all, I felt like a 10th grade teacher collecting all the papers from all these cities and compiled all of the tasting notes. And we did use numerical scoring. That's not something our tasting panel uses, but for the sake of kind of rating them, because we weren't going to release all 6, we were going to release 3 of them. So we had to figure out, how we would decide which 3 to use. So we did use a numerical scoring system, and members took their notes, made their scores, and after compiling all of that data, out of those 6, 3 of them were released over the course of 2020. Last year, starting in, I want to say July. Then we had another release in August and then October. And it was so much fun. What's cooler than American members picking their own exclusive casks?
Yeah.
And in every city, members had a lot of fun doing it, connecting with each other, having a good chat about each whiskey, and of course, essentially getting a master class from Charlie. That never hurts.
I mean, it was not easy. It was a blind.
Yeah.
Put your brain, your hat on, and try and figure out what it was. And I mean, some speak to you pretty quickly, but some don't. And it's really investigative process and a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was 2019. Then in 2020, of course, you get hit by COVID, and we're all jazzed to do this again, and it had to take a different form. Obviously, we weren't allowed to be holding in-person events anywhere, and unfortunately, it's not legal to send samples in the U.S. So we kind of had to pivot there. So in 2020, what we did was myself, Ben Diedrich, and Jenna Eli, who most of you know and love, we carried the mantle of the American membership, and we acted as you guys. Hope you don't mind. And Charlie joined us via Zoom, and he was again the chairperson. He kind of took us through. So that stream is available on our channel. It was October of last year. It's about 2 hours long, and I think at some point before tomorrow's email goes out, we will likely denote what times you can check out the casks, because as you might imagine, 2+ hours, there's a bit of chat in there. So we'll kind of guide you a bit. But in any case, Charlie took us through these 6 samples from last year. And then a week later, we sent out an email to members and asked you to vote on these casks, which 3 you'd like to see released. So out of the 6 that were tasted, again, 3 were chosen. And today is the first release of these 3. And I've been nosing this. I do have to admit, I have been tasting it a bit. I couldn't, I poured this dram at like 3 p.m. and I was for a couple of hours, and then I was just like, oh shit, I got to taste this thing, man. It smells too good. It's a treat. It's a real treat. So I think without further ado, shall we dive into this?
Yes, let's do it.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you chose this. You wanted it. If you were part of the society in October of 2020, thank you for participating. If you were not part of the society yet, everybody else did the heavy lifting. Now all you get to do is order it. So this is our first Tasting Panel Experience 2020 release. Clambake on the Beach, cask 53.375. This is a 10-year-old Isla whiskey in a refill hoggy, 58.7%. Now, folks, let's take a look at this smashing label.
Yeah.
Michael A. Hall, an artist in Scotland, takes care of all of our celebratory labels, and this is certainly one of those celebrations. You see, you have some waves. You got a little bottle of iodine. You have a very nervous clam, I'm assuming, and then this crab that is ready to party with a brilliant glass of whiskey. Now, it's a rocks glass. I might go for a snifter, but I guess at this point you're enjoying yourself, so you don't necessarily have to do a proper tasting glass. Then you have this seagull is just chilling. He's just enjoying his rock pool, his little
his boxers there.
Yeah, I think he's in boxers. Just kick back and relax. And the way back, I'm not sure if you can make it out, but in the distance there are a few bags of coal, and that will come into play when I share the full tasting note with you. But again, this is Clam Bake on the Beach, 53.375. Your tasting panel experience, exclusive cask, the first this year to be released. Let me throw this bad boy up on the ticker. There we are. So 10 years old, refill hogshead, as I said, all 10 years in that refill hogshead. That's going to be retailing at $135. Like our other casks, this will be available via lottery. So, you guys can take off the armor and whatever else you wear to do battle on the internet to get some of these casks that seem to vanish. We're kind of, going to leave it up to chance. I think it's the fairest way to make sure a lot of people can get this. So, for the on the title of this, I believe there's a link for you guys to access to be able to enter the lottery. So please make sure you find that and enter your emails, throw your hat in the ring. Worst that happens is you don't get chosen, and you'll likely get chosen for something else coming down the pipeline. But it's we got a few of these bottles. I want to say 200 and what do we got here? 273. So pretty good chance. Now, Charles, you have a bottle.
I do.
Because you were so kind to help me out with this. So you're a winner already. Wow. Okay, let's get into this.
Yeah, nice pale color there.
Talk is cheap. Yeah, let's look at this color. I don't have the most neutral background in my YouTube tartan here, but you guys can kind of get the idea here that
good old refill there.
Yeah, you're looking at a pretty pale spirit, very, very light, kind of straw, dried straw, rather pale.
So I get a lot of, so when you think of Distillery 53 in general, you think maybe of a peaty floral kind of peppery dram.
Yes.
If you're thinking of their 12-year, their standard line. But when I was nosing this earlier today, it's super creamy. There is some brightness that comes through, but and you can get this a little bit in the core line of number 53, but there's definitely a lot of melon. I get like a green melon, almost like a rind as well in there.
Oh yeah, I pick up on that, like a honeydew kind of rind.
Green, honeydew, yep. And there's a tiny bit of tropical, just a tiny bit of like some banana in there.
Oh, great, man. Yeah, I definitely picked up on the creaminess, that kind of very creamy vanilla, almost like vanilla frosting,
Yeah, like almost like a lemon cream frosting, like the
definitely get the pepper. So when we first tasted these back in October of last year, I kicked it off. I was really excited. I'm like, oh, I'm getting like Blanco tequila, like on the nose, and everyone else in the group was like, nah, not really. Sorry, dude. But I came back and again, like I get this sort of agave spirit.
Oh, I
don't know why I keep picking that up. I honestly have not sipped a tequila in a really long time.
Oh, that's
maybe a mezcal here and there, but but it's there. I get that. It's almost like kind of a vegetal thing. It's very fresh, very, very fresh. I get tons of that just really nice salinity, that sense of maritime, for folks who haven't been to Distillery 53, it's on a really lovely little rocky shore. It's like not sand. It's like perfectly rounded pebbles everywhere, and it's the Sound of Islay. So a pretty narrow stretch of water between Islay's northeast corner and the Isle of Jura. You're kind of staring up at the mountains there, the Pops of Jura, and it's a beautifully serene place, a very, very peaceful place. And that maritime area, it's not as like rough and rugged as the Southeast, where places like Distillery 29 and 33 are. It's much more peaceful.
Yeah, I mean, it's
a beautiful sense of maritime.
Obviously, it's a big producer. They make a lot of malt there for blends and all of that. But they do use these very large, tall stills. And I've brought groups there a few times now, and I was at the festival a couple of years ago as well, and I've done some incredible tastings there. But some of the things you realize when you're there is that with those big stills, you do have a low fill as well, and you do get this kind of high copper contact interaction with the still, low phenol. I mean, there are some phenols in Distillery 53, but it's not a super potent one, and I don't know. This one's, the nose is just right there with it. It's like that melon. I get a little light sulfur. There's some malty, almost like a malt ball, like a chocolate malt ball in there as well.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, they're peating at what, around 35 ppm, which is fairly standard for Islay. But as you mentioned earlier, with that reflux, it comes through a bit more subtly. And there's certainly some kind of light smoke on the nose, but much more of that salinity and that that seaside freshness.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in.
It packs a punch.
Tremendous texture.
Yeah. Viscosity.
Buttery. So Jenna picked up very strongly on like buttered popcorn. I absolutely get that.
I get a lot of citrus. I get like this lemon tartness that comes through pretty strong.
It's like an oil, no? Like a lemon oil or there's plenty of texture there. A really nice mouthful.
The finish goes on for a long time, and it does have this kind of. I was talking about it actually with my colleague earlier today, who was helping me with some kind of notes. But there's this kind of dusty smoke. It's not. It's like the embers have are put out and they're still hot, but it's not like this campfire smoke. It's more of an ember, dusty, kind of a hot dust kind of finish. And it's interesting how it plays on the tongue. It kind of centers right on the middle of your tongue.
With a lot of warming kind of like lovely spices there too. A bit of black pepper spice. Yeah, maybe more white pepper. It's not quite as pronounced as black pepper, but it's there. It's no cabinets or cabinet spices or anything like that to really discern. But maybe a touch of chili. But again, just refreshing. Like, man. I mean, obviously, it's pretty warm out these days, and to enjoy this like with a dozen oysters, that sounds like a pretty good idea.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the title of it. This would be the perfect kind of dram with a clam bake when you're out, outside, and there was kind of this lemonade quality to it with the citrus, kind of a fresh, bright, barbecue / clam bake atmosphere dram. It's pretty perfect for that.
And I almost get now I'm starting to get kind of some deeper, meatier notes, like a barbecued kind of glazed pork or something like that. Like I'm getting a little bit more of that on the palate now that I'm taking a few more tastes.
This is one where you could drink too much of it, and then you would need some iron brew.
Ooh,
to make sure you're,
I've never come across it, and all my hangovers in Scotland, no one was ever kind enough to share that with me. So there was that one time in Isla that I woke up with my shoes on. It was a tough next day, but a really fun night.
Yeah. So this one's fun with some water.
Let's. I'm gonna refill a little bit, and then I'm gonna dilute. And in the chat, we've had some troubles finding the link. Fear not, guys. There is an email going out tomorrow, and you will very easily be able to enter your names at that point. So at 1 p.m., there will be an email going out. There'll be a link to our tasting in October 2020. There'll be a link to our tasting that's happening right now, and the opportunity to enter your email. So no worries, and you will have until Monday at 2 p.m. to do that. So even if you get taken away on some crazy 3-day trip, you'll still have some time to do this. And then on Monday we will reach out to the winners. So this is probably an important point. If you do not get selected, you're not going to hear from us until, of course, we mentioned that the lottery is closed. So don't be too upset with us. We will contact the winners, but usually with a lottery like this, there are several hundred folks who submit their emails. So it's kind of a time management thing. But in any case, back to this dram. Have you diluted? Now, are you doing like a Charlie, like 40 to 20, but really landing at 20?
I added more whiskey to the glass, and then I added quite a bit of water. I mean, not a couple of drops. I did do a full dropper.
Right. I'm doing a few squirts here because it is, on that first nose, you smell that 58.7%.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Now, I get a lot more salinity, sea salt now than I did without the water.
Really?
Yeah. I get that sea salt.
Yeah, that's almost like I was talking about oysters earlier, but that's like oyster shell type minerality.
The chocolate note that I got earlier, that went away with water, but definitely more of this kind of seaside salinity.
Yeah.
Iodine a little bit.
Touch of iodine. Touch of like chlorine pool type aspect to it. Oh, I'm still getting quite a bit of citrus there. I'm probably getting a little bit more.
Yeah. Definitely on the palate, it just opens it up, and the citrus comes full forward. The smoke actually intensifies, and for me it does, at least. Maybe because that alcohol's calmed down a little bit.
Yes, on the nose, even more salinity. On the palate, the salinity is reduced quite a bit.
Yep.
And the smoke really comes to the forefront.
The smoke and some of more of that citrus. Yep.
And now I'm starting to pick up on more chocolatey notes as well. Wow.
It's a good mouth feel. It's a great coating.
Well, Charlie mentioned in the tasting of this originally in October, he said it was a lovely example of the make, which is a great a nice endorsement from him, and essentially exceptional cask should retain that inherent distillery character, but also have that character developed further upon in the cask. And to his estimation, it was done here brilliantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think certainly we would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Geez, I've tasted so many 53s, and I think a lot of members out there have had and purchased so many 53s over the years, and they can be pretty different.
Oh, yeah.
I'm thinking of a couple of recent ones, like Industrial Chimney Soot or Green Sea Tapestry, and then you have Clambake on the Beach. They can take on certainly very different expressions of each other, but still retaining that distillery character, which is I think fairly underrated. Most of this whiskey goes into blends.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, those who are part of the society are a bit more in tune with independent bottling and single casks that you might come across. But for most folks, they've probably had Johnny Walker Black a million times, and they never knew that this was
95% of that.
Yeah, right.
95% production that goes into that.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
So it's great to see so many casks consistently be, in my opinion, head and shoulders above the official bottlings.
Yeah, I mean,
and I've heard that from a lot of members.
We did the festival, a couple of years ago, and they're always pulling out some pretty incredible barrels and drams for that. And we did, and Pierrick was still there. This is before he left to go across the island. But this dram here reminds me more of kind of what you would want 53 to kind of represent. It's not one of those offshoots that you're like, wow, this is 53. This is more true to, like what Charlie said, the make and what you would want from this distillery if you kind of were trying to think of this distillery. So it's a great example of it, and it's beautiful. It's really, really nice.
Great. Well, I'm glad you enjoy it, man. It was it was a fun 2 hours to spend with Charlie to taste through these different whiskeys, and all of them were fantastic. But you can only choose 3.
Yeah.
And this was a big favorite of mine in that tasting. And obviously the members who watched and then voted tended to be in agreement. So we're very excited to release this tomorrow. And it's just a really, really fun dram. I think it's extremely what's the word? Sorry, my words are escaping me all of a sudden. It's a perfect dram to have this time of year, as summer maybe. I mean, right today we're kind of in the dog days, but pretty soon summer will be winding down. Just there's still some warmth in the air. Find a beach somewhere and crack this baby open. You're going to be sitting pretty.
Or sit on the coast here, just on the rock.
Sure, yeah. Distillery number 3 behind you there. Yeah, sure. If you could find that coast, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that'd be a good coast. Yeah.
I think we can travel to the UK, right? I mean,
yeah, it's
tests and stuff. They can't.
It's not easy though. It's better not to yet, I think, in my opinion. But I'm not doing any tours over there until probably at least the spring next summer. So.
Yeah, well, it's our hope that we'll get in-person events going again this year, hopefully in October. But things are always evolving. So
yeah, that's for sure.
We'll just kind of have to roll with the punches to a great extent. We'll
have to keep drinking cask strength whiskey to.
Well, that's true. That kind of makes everything a little better, doesn't it? And Zoom isn't an in-person event, but at least not only through this medium, but members amongst themselves can still kind of connect with each other and and have fun tastings like you do with the Saratoga Whiskey Club.
For sure.
So again, tomorrow you're going to see an email come out for 53.375. Let me show you this beautiful label once more. Oops, I'm still so terrible at this camera management. There we are. And I did promise to read the tasting note, so let me maybe part on that, and we'll let's see. Okay, so clam bake on the beach. So we offered our tasting notes to Charlie. Charlie came back with this. Appears Pinot Grigio-like, a pale golden hue, but no wine by the sea. Instead, a dram packed with sweet, smoky, and coastal seafaring memories. A mild nose feel, fresh as a sea breeze, a bounty of maritime aromas, crystal salt, rock pools, iodine, sweet brine, and drawn butter. Mouth-watering. A drop of the sea brings forward sweet smoke, kettle corn by the shores, and waves tossing up salty sparks into the air. The palate sings in harmony with fresh sweet popped corn on gooey fudge, salty butter, and earthy roasted coffee. That's something I missed. The coffee, it was very much there. Coal smoke bags linger in the distance to top off sweet and salty trail mix of flavors. A dash of water increases the saltiness, reduces the smokiness, yet introduces a warming, spiced finish. A holiday by the sea in a glass.
Wow.
So that's great. So what do you think? It was pretty good. I mean, that's a pretty good tasting note, huh?
Yeah, no, it was great. It was different than what I thought.
There was something kind of roasty, toasty in there, and
I mean, that's what's so fun about doing this.
Yeah.
I mean, we all get different things. I mean, that's what it's all about, right? So
yeah. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in. It was a pleasure to have you here tonight, and divulge this brand new cast to you, which is a lot of fun for me. And it was an absolute pleasure to have you, Charles.
Well, thank you, Tom.
You should come back and join us again sometime.
I will do that anytime you ask.
Yeah, man.
For sure.
Well, thanks again. And you see Charles's handle there, Whiskey Traveling. Once you do get going, folks, reach out. This guy throws some really fun tours all over the place. And until next time, I really appreciate it, Charles. Thanks for your time. And everyone out there, we'll talk to you tomorrow. Slanja.
Slanja. Thanks, Tom.
You got it.